the topics, the technical barriers of exporting to Japan, and then I'll hand it over to Sungwoo Lee at R&L Associates, who will talk more about demand and export growth opportunities. As questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. As Nelda said, I do have colleagues in the call, on the call right now from Bryant Christie, who can hopefully answer some of your questions as they come up. But if not, we do offer one-on-one consultations after each seminar, and you can sign up. Nelda will send out the links and information to you, and we can meet specifically to discuss your products, your opportunities, challenges, etc. So if we can't answer your questions in the chat, we'll definitely, hopefully, schedule a one-on-one consultation afterward. So over the next few slides, I'll cover Japan import landscape and the technical requirements that are involved. Japan is a very technical market. They're very specific with their import regulations and intentional about the products they allow in and the testing and various regulations that exporters must comply with, especially when it comes to food and agricultural products. And then I'll hand it over to R&L Associates, and we'll have Q&A and next steps after. So first we'll cover the Japan import market landscape, and I'll talk about the US-Japan trade agreement that was initiated 5 years ago, and also discuss the current tariff structure and situation right now. As an overview for the demographics, for Japan, they're aging. Let's see if we can get some of these videos muted. Okay. They have definitely an aging population dominance in this market compared to other markets throughout Asia. The largest population shares are in the 50 to 79 age range, highlighting their advanced demographic transition and a predominantly older population. They have low youth representation. The age group 0 to 14 make up a small percentage of the population, about 12%, indicating low birth rates and a shrinking younger generation. This is something to keep in mind as you look out over the next several decades, that the population in Japan is only going to decrease, and the purchasing power of the middle age groups is going to be smaller than what it has been and what it currently is now. There's longer female life expectancy. Female population shares consistently exceed males in older age groups, especially after age 75, with the sex ratio dropping as low as 0.15 in the 100 plus category. So signifying definite female longevity. And then the demographic challenge ahead. So as I said, the combination of a shrinking youth population and a rapidly growing elderly population indicates different needs than you might experience in different markets, especially more emerging economies and countries throughout Asia, throughout the world. But they are dealing with increasing pressure on healthcare, pensions, workforce sustainability, all key concerns that Japan is currently facing, and will definitely impact the food, beverage, and agricultural import economy. So some economic indicators that do reflect the demographics. They're a mature, developed economy. It's advanced. There's a high per capita income, which make it a staple, high-value market for premium food exports. And they have a long-standing preference for imported products, especially from the United States. There's high individual wealth. The Japanese consumers have strong purchasing power, and they have typically had a health-conscious mindset long before COVID, which further expanded that health consciousness throughout the Asian economies. But Japan has historically had a more higher preference for healthy, nutritious food items. They have open, business-friendly economy. The U.S.-Japan trade agreement provided favorable market access with reduced tariffs for most American food products. And then there is a supply gap leadership opportunity. So the ongoing food inflation and domestic shortages are creating new openings for U.S. exporters to meet rising import demand. But also, it's important to keep mind about the changing shifts in population and where those opportunities are, given the changing economy, which is a reflection of the population changes. We put together a chart here to show the GDP per capita in Central and South. Sorry, it should be Asia, but the China obviously very high GDP outlook, but in contrast, the GDP per capita for Japan and Korea are higher than that of China. So while the output is higher, the per capita capability of Japan in particular is very high. So now I want to cover the tariffs and trade agreements for the U.S. and Japan that were an outcome of the trade agreement, but then also cover some of the updates over the past several months. The U.S.-Japan trade agreement went into force January 1st, 2020, and is scheduled to have full tariff elimination as of January 1, 2035. The key provisions were that the current tariff eliminations for year 5 applied to almonds, walnuts, blueberries, cranberries, sweet corn, processed pork, cheese, poultry, and broccoli. By year 10 in 2030, it'll apply to fresh and frozen pork, and beef products will be among the last products to receive tariff elimination in year 15 or 2035. The current tariff situation. So I'll kind of start from February 2nd, when the Trump administration announced reciprocal tariffs on global trading partners, which was the 10% tariffs on imports from all countries, and it was a 24% tariff on Japanese imports, so products from Japan into the US. Reciprocal tariffs formally took effect on Japan imports on April 5th, but April 9th, the administration paused all elevated reciprocal tariffs for 90 days, which would be July 9th. On June 5th, the US-Japan talks continued, and they're seeking a full exemption from the 10% tariff on autos and steel. By July 9th, the pause is scheduled to expire, barring an agreement or extension of the pause. So we're kind of in between that time between June 5th and July 9th, and waiting to see what happens next with the current pause. It's important to have these discussions with your importers or distributors in Japan to make sure you account for any potential tariffs or those additional costs, depending on when your products are expected to ship out. Technical requirements. So here I'll go over the MRL overview, some compliance tips. I'll go over phytosanitary certification requirements for fresh produce, labeling and packaging regulations, and customs clearance and documentation practices. In terms of MRLs, they're regulated by the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare. They enforce a positive list system established in 2006 under the Food Sanitation Law. Under this system, only chemicals expressly listed can be present on imported produce. They test between 3 to 10% of all import shipments for compliance, and non-compliance can result in heightened inspections. And while this is not extremely common, it has happened, and Brian Christie has had experience dealing with the heightened inspections, and which would apply to the industry for periods of time. In terms of phytosanitary certifications for fresh produce, it's regulated under Japan's Plant Protection Act and the Enforcement Ordinance. There's a phytosanitary certificate required for imports of plants and materials. All places of production, orchards and fields, and packing houses must be registered by the USMPPO under an APHIS approved work plan. Commodity-specific protocols exist for apples, cherries, plums, nectarines, pears, and papayas. Labeling requirements. There are quite a few here that relate to products going to Japan. I'll start with language. All labels must be in Japanese. Sticker labels are allowed, but must not be easily removed. For genetically engineered labeling, designated ingredients must be labeled genetically modified or non-GMO. This applies to soybeans, corn, potatoes, canola, cottonseed, sugar beet, alfalfa, and papaya. Labeling is required on all GE products if GE content exceeds 5%. For allergens, they require labeling for 7 allergens, including milk, wheat, egg, milk, wheat, buckwheat, peanut, shrimp, and crab. And for 21 additional allergens, labeling is voluntary, which includes various nuts, fish, mushrooms, proteins, and fruit. So this is where it's important to always understand which allergens your products may contain and which would be required for labeling in this market. For date marking, there's 2 different types of date marking, a use by for perishable products and best before for products with a shelf life greater than 5 days. And they use a year, month, day format. For nutrition labeling, it must be in Japanese and must list the following: energy, protein, fat, carbohydrate, and sodium. Additional nutrient labeling is voluntary. And for country of origin labeling, it's required for fresh foods and finished product processed foods. The labeling is also required for 22 food groups when used in ingredients in goods manufactured in Japan. So imported finished product processed goods are exempt. Customs clearance documentation. So a required documentation here: commercial invoice, packing list, bill of lading, or airway bill, import declaration, certificate of origin, health sanitary certificates. The import notification is required under Japan's Food Sanitation Act and must be submitted to MHLW's quarantine stations. For inspection, monitoring inspection occurs around 10% of the time. Products with safety concerns have a higher rate, and first-time imports have a higher likelihood of inspection as well. At this point, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I'd like to introduce Ms. Sung-Hwa Lee of R&L Associates, who will give an overview of the market in terms of generating demand.
Thank you, Nilda and Alicia. So my colleague Yun Ryang will share the screen for our presentation. Okay, thank you. So, 皆様おはようございます。Good morning from Tokyo, Japan. My name is Lee Sung-hwa, Japan in-country representative of SARA. I see most of you are the experienced exporter to Japan, but let me walk with you this morning to recap key topics along with quick overview of the Japanese food market and consumer trends. Next, please. So, sorry. So this is a Japan demographic. Just quickly, there are 7 major markets in Japan, as you can see, and is located in the Pacific Rim. Okay, so next slide, please. So I just want to mention here the Japan's versatility and uniformity. Japan has 47 prefectures from the northernmost Hokkaido to the southernmost Okinawa, and geographically and culturally segmented in 8 regional blocks. Tokyo is a state capital and is heavily centralized. Each prefecture and regional block have unique cultural legacies, including local food tradition, along with the dialects. Today, most of the national retail store chains set up distribution centers and inventory management systems per these regional block. In each prefecture, there are the public central wholesale markets where the agricultural, seafood commodities, and fresh flowers are auctioned or negotiated on price on weekdays. Next slide, please. When we talk about consumer preference in Japan, there is a wide variety. In general, Japanese consumers place high importance on food safety and quality. Many domestic producers emphasize traceability and farm to fork by placing photos of farmers on products' packages. Perhaps the most notable difference between US and Japanese consumer preferences relates to product packaging. Most Japanese homes are much smaller in size than US homes and have limited storage space. As a result, Japanese food packages are small and easily storable. Next slide, please. As you can see, refrigerators and shelf space is very limited. This is a typical Japanese kitchen space. This impacts your storage options. You can see the main cooking appliances are a microwave and a stovetop with a small fish grill and a rice cooker. This means that most cooking is pan frying, saute, boiling, or microwave, etc. Baking, roasting, and grilling are not easy options in a typical Japanese home. This is to emphasize how important it is to design food products and package size for the Japanese retail market. Next slide, please. About half of Japanese consumers go food shopping 2 to 3 times per week. This is partly because consumers prefer fresh food, but also because there is no place to store larger volumes of food. On this graph, 39% of consumers go food shopping on foot and 24% go by bicycle. Therefore, small packages of food that are easy to carry by hand or in a bike basket are preferred. This is important to consider when designing sizes and packaging for Japan. Consumers' shopping patterns are oftentimes impacted by the weather and temperature, naturally. Frozen food, prepared food, deli, ready to eat type of meal, meal set kit, and food service menus are usually regarded as replacement of hand prepared or homemade dishes. So consumers intend to consume chilled and frozen products as soon as possible. Next slide, please. Japanese consumers are highly concerned about food safety and traceability. Mobile phone app to scan in codes to get more information about producers in front of the shelf. Anzen and anshin is a word meaning safety and peace of mind. Giving the consumer more information about the producers is very important, especially for new products. As Japanese literacy level is quite high, Japanese tend to appreciate text information and tangible feelings for food. Japanese consumers place great importance on quality. Producers that fail to recognize this will not succeed. Good quality usually means freshness, seasonality, and consistency. They appreciate taste and all of its subtleties and will pay for it. They are well educated and knowledgeable about food and its many variations. They are highly brand conscious. A brand with a quality image will sell. Brand includes the local brands. A food product's aesthetic appearance. They must be pretty, or in Japanese, kirei, or kawaii, meaning pretty, cute. Care a great deal about seasonal foods and freshness. They are increasingly health conscious, particularly after COVID, of course. Next slide, please. Here we see the results of a survey that asked same questions to Japanese, American, and French consumers. The survey revealed that only 9% of Japanese people prioritize environmental consideration when choosing food, unlike 19% of Americans and 29% of French. Next slide, please. The chart on left shows that 75% of Japanese consumers buy food in the retail markets, supermarkets, typically. Before COVID-19, eating out became increasingly popular as it has become more affordable and less time consuming. Fast food offers convenience for households who have dual incomes and as lifestyles are becoming faster paced. Eating out has also become a leisure activity. Lunch hour is the most common time in Japan to eat out. Next slide, please. Japanese retailers usually do not import directly. In most cases, distribution will include at least one importer and one wholesaler. Generally, the first step to market entry is to find an importer, which may take a considerable amount of time and efforts. Importers introduce new product to retail buyers, and if interested, they, meaning retailers, will request their wholesaler, distributor, and/or importer to consider purchasing. It can often be difficult to identify appropriate retailers, even more difficult to get an appointment with the decision makers. Japanese retailers usually have large purchasing teams per category. In many cases, they have a person in charge of international trade. Slide, please. Although Alicia already mentioned, I just quickly touch base on this. So country of origin labeling, cool, is required for 22 food groups and 5 food items when used as ingredients in food to be manufactured in Japan. Also some allergen labeling, it is kind of revised. As Alicia said, 7 allergen items are now it started including walnuts. So it's now 8 major allergen product to be labeled, something like that. For more details, please find the most updated USDA gains reports, such as Japan Export Guide. It is always updated and is very, very informative. Next slide, please. So there are 7 major laws in Japan, again, Alicia has mentioned, governing food and agricultural products, including imports. Most of these will be taken care of by the importers based on close communication with their foreign suppliers. Prior to the trial or commercial shipment, US suppliers are oftentimes requested by the Japanese importers to provide with, disclose various information, including ingredient list, manufacturing flowchart, certificate of analysis, and product specification sheets to identify each ingredient. All of them are necessary for the Japanese authority to confirm the tariff code, product type, category, according to the Japanese law and standard. So please be open and honest with your trade partners always. So next slide, please. When you come to target Japanese retail market, you'll see 5 major product categories as national common standards. Please note that most of the retail market sales data, consumer research are also taken per these categories. 3 perishables, 2 ambient groceries, shelf-stable groceries, 3 chilled and frozen products, 4 deli prepared meals, side dishes, and bakery items, 5 alcoholic beverages. In general, retail chain stores are focusing on scale merits for rolling SKUs. Supply chain management has become very important, so the retail order systems are shared by the consortiums nowadays after COVID. Voluntary chain groups, local producers, wholesalers, and distributors per digital networks. They monitor the numbers all the time for keeping category management, efficient customer relations, efficient inventory management. These are the keys for the retail buyers. So next slide, please. So Japanese are receptive to appreciate fresh, seasonal, its own and somebody else's traditional, authentic, and exotic food. Appreciating Japanese traditional condiments, sake, soy sauce, mirin, miso, and rice vinegar. These are the basics of the Japanese cuisine. And home meal. Next slide, please. So this is a graph to show the Japanese shopping patterns for the food. This is a comparison of April 2019 before COVID versus April 2024 in pie charts to show the percentage of the breakdowns per category of what the Japanese consumers put in their shopping carts. The percentage per category look almost identical. But food consumption, people tend to be conservative by choosing something they have already known or tried as Japanese. So next slide, please. Here, I would like to show you that Japanese consumers in general are not really excited about buying food online. More than 75% of general consumers said they do not buy at all perishable food online. Slide, please. So Japanese people love to enjoy the appearance, color, and dish-up arrangement of food. Many of the top and long-selling consumed Japanese food are using American food ingredients. Calbee is known for the most popular potato chips and now for having more than 50% market share of breakfast granola category. Glico is also known as a high volume mover of California almond. As you know, Japanese rice home consumption has declined, but the sales by the convenience stores, onigiri rice balls, are increasing. So Japanese have constantly enjoyed eating the cooked rice and nori seaweed. 7-Eleven alone sells 2.2 billion onigiri rice balls per year. Sokai, so this is a kind of the example of the Japanese preference. So localization is one of the other key to make US products to be appreciated and um, popularized in Japanese market. Next slide, please. So imported food products are merchandised as specialty and gift in upscale and high-end grocery and supermarket chains. They have more shelf space for the imported food as demanded by the clienteles, having unique product procurement systems as category killers. At the moment, they look like more prospective targets for the Western US food suppliers, rather than ordinary supermarket chains, I mean. Next slide, please. So Western US ag and seafood commodities have long history of exporting to Japan. And for some of them, like California, raisins, prunes, almonds, soybeans, and then corns have the largest market share in Japan. Next slide, please. The market demand will be growing while the number of workers, let's talk about the HRI sector. The market demand will be growing while the number of workers and professional cooks, chefs may be shrinking. The education and training of food professionals is becoming a big theme in Japan to ensure food safety, promoting Japanese traditional and local cuisines, international cuisines, and food styles, etc. So working with the HRI sector might be a good way to promote Western US food products in the coming decades. Next slide, please. So international 4-5 stars hotel chains are loudly declaring they would choose to use only natural, sustainable food ingredients. All these major players are also known as industry leaders for sourcing sustainable, wholesome, and responsibly produced food materials. In reality, these demands have made their distributors' situation quite hard in these couple of years. But again, working with these top-notch hotel chains, restaurant chains, um, setting up menu fairs, consumer campaigns would be a good way to penetrate with the Western US products. So next slide, please. And baking industry is also a very good market for the Western US ag commodities. So as I said, some of the US commodities from Western US regions have already penetrated this sector very, very successfully. So next slide, please. Here, let us see in general how the food ingredients purchase decision is made by the Japanese companies. There are three pillars. First pillar is product development, marketing, sales force, who is running forefront in the market tracks, facing the end users, catching new market trends and demands. Second pillar is a procurement and purchase team, who is responsible for supplier, product search, cost calculation, and logistics coordination. And the third pillar is a QC team, whose role in food and beverage companies have become especially important. They test, verify, and confirm if the used ingredients comply with the requirement by Japanese law and standardization, making sure the food is to be safe and responsibly manufactured. So when you hear, after all the communication, trade communication with the Japanese potential buyers, when you hear the news from the QC team that they want to visit your plant, that is a very good sign. They're ready to buy the products from you. So in a sense, the QC team members are probably virtually de facto the final decision maker for purchasing for the Japanese companies. So next slide, please. Okay, so again, the solution, one of the solutions to make your products placed in the eyes of the consumers for the food professionals. The market demand will be growing while the number of workers and professional cooks, chefs may be shrinking. So education and training of food professionals is becoming a big theme in Japan to ensure food safety, promoting Japanese traditional international cuisines, as I said. So working with the industry leaders and top-notch chefs, bakery chefs, would be a very good way to expand your opportunities in Japan. So next slide, please. So this is a kind of a growing area. Now, large volume of dried fruits and nuts from the state of Washington, California, and Oregon are featured in the healthy snacks and low-carb meal solutions. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the kind of orientation that, we would like to really propose these things. Go find the opportunities of meeting with the Japanese importers and traders because they will be the vehicles to get you to the retail market. Such opportunities are like USARA inbound, outbound missions, showcase, one-on meetings, USARA pavilion in international trade shows, all types of future virtual and actual B2B events. You have to meet with the buyers first, otherwise nothing will happen. Be brave and candid to provide your Japanese trading partners with all the technical information to identify your unique product and stories behind so they can go on to reach out to the distribution channels, taking care of Japanese regulations, rules, and consumer support. When Japanese buyers start asking you too many questions, please be patient. Don't be scared or skeptical because that's a very, very good sign, as I said. Share with your expectation to raise consumer awareness and sales. But you need to trust your partners to navigate you in the fields. Do your best to keep supplying your product to Japan on long-term basis with consistency of quality, volume, and price. Let more Japanese people aware that your product is delicious. This is very important, cool, and wholesome. That's the key. So next slide, please. So that's it for this morning. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And again, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to USADA headquarters, people, and this community, and ATO Japan office for giving R&L Associates a chance to share this wonderful event. どうもありがとうございました。Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. We appreciate your time and presentation.
Thank you.
So Nelda, at this point, I'll go back to my presentations, which has the upcoming events and open registration information.
Okay. And again, if anybody has any questions to ask, if you want to type those in the chat, and then we can, after these few slides, we can address those. But some upcoming Wasada events, Food Taipei, which is in a couple of weeks, June 25th to the 28th. We have an outbound trade mission to Tokyo, Osaka, and Sapporo, Japan, July 20th through 26th. Registration for that is closed, but we have quite a few attending. Then we have the Japan outbound trade mission. It's consumer oriented. That's in September 1st through the 6th, and the registration for that is coming soon. So you might want to be, keep an eye out for that. And then right now we have open registration for several events. And as you see here, Central and South America, consumer-oriented outbound trade mission, the deadline for that is June the 12th. That would be tomorrow. Alaska, Hawaii, floriculture, inbound mission with in-market promotion. The deadline for that is June the 20th. So that'll be next Friday. Korea consumer-oriented outbound mission to Seoul and Busan. The deadline for that is June the 30th. Then we have the China Pet Food International Fair outbound mission. The deadline for that is also June the 30th. We have the Latin America produce inbound mission to Idaho and Nevada. Deadline is August the 4th. Mexico outbound trade mission, the deadline for that is September the 26th. Specialty food inbound to Colorado and Idaho. Deadline for that is October the 10th. Then we have a Europe inbound mission to Colorado and New Mexico, and the deadline to sign up for that is October the 10th. So quite a few open registrations, several opportunities for companies to participate. At this time, we can address any questions that you may have, and we still have Lee on the call with us. In case there's any specific questions, we can address those now. If we don't have any, I just want to let everyone know that I will send out the recorded video tomorrow, along with the link for the one-on-one consultation, which is a 30-minute session with Bryant Christie and Export Education, as well as a survey link to get your feedback. Okay, we do have a question in the chat. Is the exchange rate as impactful as the importers express? Lee, do you want to answer that question?
Yes, of course, exchange rate is very important. Although at the moment, the yen depreciation, dollar appreciation trend has been kind of fixed. And for the past maybe 2 years, so a lot of Japanese companies relying on imported products from the US particularly are have made a huge adjustment to be feasible, to be to be able to survive and still be competitive. However, the kind of US-China trade wars also may impact the exchange rate in the coming months. So, in a word, yes, exchange rate is very, very important. So, so that this is the importers are making a lot of efforts to adjust and try to not to place that back onto the consumer product price. So it is about US, Japan, but with other foreign currencies, the situation may be different, like Turkish dollar, RMB, Korean won. So they're they're trying to adjust again, reduce the risks of the fluctuation of the exchange rate. Is okay? Do I answer to the question?
Okay, we have another here. You mentioned a dynamic of the buyers to have to use a middleman or a distributor. Can you speak more about the distributors and importers?
Okay. Well, now in Japan, the trend is although there is a kind of a traditional structure of food distribution. Again, 3 perishables means meat, vegetable, fruits, seafood. They are, for the past 100 years, based upon the wholesale law, these commodities must be auctioned and price negotiated on daily basis in the public central wholesale market. This is a very unique system, and so the supermarket buyers, retail papa mama shops historically used to go and purchase their daily goods from the whole central wholesale market. And there is a different role. Usually distributors and middlemen, they are not just a broker. They sometimes finance the retailers, and they sometimes mostly the wholesale, central wholesale market, auctioneers, they finance the suppliers. They pay as soon as possible and collect and distribute to the retail ends, that kind of roles. So this is a kind of the one big supply chain. So they kind of for the commercial ethics and conventions, the retailers do not, they focus on selling safe, wholesome, good products to the consumers. And the wholesalers are responsible for certain areas of this supply chain, and importers are facing to the foreign suppliers. So they communicate, they communicate and they try to build one big supply chain. And it's because of digitization, digital, transformation, this supply chain becomes more, how do you say, it used to be multi-tiered, but it's like a single and very transparent supply chain. So it is, so this is still changing and kind of advancing. So in Japanese food distribution channel, the middleman, the secondary wholesalers, they will not go away. So it's very important for you to come out and meet with the importers, wholesalers, and retailers, as often as possible. In that way, you can have a feeling of how to communicate, and it's on different level, but in one supply chain. So I can probably send you some more information. And also, as I said, USDA gain report, retail and food service, the reports covers extensive part of this information. It is something like based upon the business practice, and it's sometimes very hard to see just by the written information or online information. But so once you meet with the Japanese trade members, you can figure out, and it's not really complicated. It is very, very human being, humane practice. So that's something you cannot see from outside. So you have to be in the market. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Lee. Another
Mhm,
question. How do we identify these
mhm,
importers for our
mhm.
specific products?
Mm, that's a very good question, and it's yeah. So it's the importers. I mean, it's changing. The community is changing, and the buyers are changing, and every year. And the Japanese companies usually make the trading companies and the companies with the import function. They do a lot of research too. Uh, all of the Japanese kind of food importers and alcoholic beverage importers and beverage importers, they send the young staff and decision makers to most of the international trade shows. That's how they try to search and identify, locate some good products. So I think, and as USADA, does, the usually the meeting spots are usually trade shows and one-on meetings, um, site tour. So although the seats are limited, I suggest you would participate in those shows, sometimes on your own or sometimes with support with USARA. And it is very hard to identify, I know what you mean. So, or we do a lot of, as USARA rep in Japan, we sometimes provide the support. If we get a request from single USARA supplier or companies, hey, I'll be in town and I would like to meet, maybe 4 potential companies who might be interested in our product, we can set up a business appointment and we can give more specific on case by case, advice. So that kind of, manual, hands-on stuff and participating in trade shows, trade meetings, that would be the first step, I think. And I know, sorry, so just to add, I know some of the Usada companies just Google Japanese shopping site, online shopping site, or but and they see the big companies or any companies, who might be interested in U.S. set of products. They try to find out. They try to contact and send the information and initiate. But that's sometimes it is very often case it's very difficult. So face-to-face meeting should take place to go on further. So I think that's why USADA is providing such a wonderful services, right? Programs. So use us, in case of Japan. Yes, just let us know.
I've got another question as far as where can we learn about the regulatory limits for microbial and heavy metals?
Lee,
it's
I can,
Alicia's.
yeah.
Yes.
I was like,
I'm sorry?
I can jump in there. Food chain ID. So Brian Christie developed an MRL database as well as a food additive database and a few other sets of regulatory requirements. That's all housed on Food Chain ID. We can put a link to the chat. Some of it is offered by USDA, which subsidizes some of the cost of those. But for microbial and heavy metals, I would recommend starting with Food Chain ID, but then also checking in with USDA as well on those requirements, or of course working with your importer as well. We